welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful August the 14th, 2020. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, it was miserable. It was like walking around outside in a sauna today after another day of rain. But, I want to thank those frontline healthcare workers, the nurses, doctors, first responders. They work in all conditions, Charlton, working to keep America safe and healthy.
They're trying to keep America safe and healthy. I want to say bonjour to somebody someplace in the world. I know it's morning time someplace, or it feels like it. I'm learning a little bit of French, Big C, so bonjour to my good old my people in France. I know it's a little bit late in the evening, but I just want to make sure we get that out for the weekend. For those of you who follow Big C Sports on the weekend, today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. And as I was saying to my friends in France, all around the world, just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. He's also about 3,000 miles away from Paris, so it's all fair, love, and war. And Africa, Big C, really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Big C, I love saying the word bonjour, and I know a lot of our veterans, they fought in Europe, and they come back home, and sometimes people forget about them, but we will never forget about them. I want to make sure we pay homage to our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced in helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, our veterans struggle in so many ways every day in this country after leaving the armed services, Charlton. We lose some 20 to them a day to suicide. Not only that, Charlton, you think about the president attacking our veterans. Many of our veterans, 80% of them, receive their medications through the mail system.
I know
and here's the president slowing down and cutting out the mail system where veterans are not getting their medications. A lot of those veterans, Charlton, need those medications to curb their mental anxiety.
Yep.
And that has led to a lot of suicide amongst our veterans in America. So when people think that the president is doing a great job and he's turning his back on our great veterans of the United States by denying them the access to their medication that they receive through the mail, remember, 80% of our veterans receive their medications through the mail because a lot of them have disabilities where they're not driving and have access to get to a pharmacy.
Yeah.
So the veteran is the president is deliberately harming our veterans in America, driving many of them to suicide, Charlton. So when you go out to vote, think about that. Here's a guy who doesn't give a damn about our veterans in our country, talking about he's worried about voting fraud.
Yeah, he's worried about the fraud, and he sees a lot of fraud every day when he looks in the mirror, and everybody knows that's true, but sometimes people don't tell him. So that's why God let Big C Sports tell them. I want to tell everybody, if you really want to help our veterans, just call the number 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get to some help. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. They're playing the Oakland A's tonight. And our goal is simple. Recruit 100 real estate brokers put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships are doing it. Sports teams are doing it. You can watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. For those of you looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can get some help there. Really looking forward to a lot of things that are happening on this beautiful Friday. I know people are going through things, but there's a day and there's a night. Do you know how the universe, it allows you to see farther, Big C, when it's dark outside? It allows you to see far. You can see other galaxies when it's dark outside. You can see suns, you can see moons, you can see stars. But God and the universe allowed us to see it. We can see farther when it's dark outside. So with that being said, how come when people run for politics, they want to make dark a negative thing, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, people are constantly trying to hide in the political arena. When you look and see what the president is doing, for instance, you're playing his dog whistle, saying that Kamala Harris, wasn't born in America. She's not an American citizen. She's not qualified to be vice president. Well, how could she run for president, Dalton, if she's not qualified to be vice president?
Yeah.
So as we see people constantly trying to hide things, and they want to use the dark as a shield, but everything comes to light eventually.
Yeah, it does come to light eventually. And I know a lot of people, they want to watch sports. They want to know what's going on. We love it, too. That's why we're like the gumbo, Big C. Gumbo, everything's inside of it. You just got to move that spoon around and find out what tastes the best. I know if we think about it, I think sometimes when I was a young boy, if I did anything wrong, I got chastised for it. My parents didn't let me pretend like I did nothing wrong. And I think also as people get pulled aside by wanting to watch an empty sports stadium. But I really believe this. If God says, let there be light, doesn't that mean that there was darkness before God said, let there be light, for people who believe in the religious world? That meant that if lightness came from darkness, and we know the original people on the planet were dark-skinned people, then light-skinned people came from dark-skinned people, according to the dominant and recessive gene. That's according to Mendel. People say, what does it have to do with sports and politics? It has everything to do with it. If you don't respect your parents, then your days may be numbered. And I'm just asking everyone on this election coming up in a couple of months, pay attention to how many times they describe darkness as negative and darkness as sinister. God said, let there be light. There must have been darkness before the light. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charles, you got to realize that the Western world here in the United States is really the only country that identified between black and white. Europeans did not walk around saying that we're white. When you look at all those European countries, they didn't identify with that.
That's
Only
right.
the United States in its development, Charleston, wanted to differentiate between the races and stuff and call other ethnicities different colors.
Yeah.
But in the European countries, Charleston, that didn't exist. This is something that's, dubious to the United States, the invention of racism.
Yeah. I think it's important when you talked about the veterans, and people got to understand, Donald Trump, he ran from serving this. He ran away. You ever run away from something, Big C? He said he was going to run away. He ran away 5 times from serving our country. So if President Trump spent as much time focusing on COVID-19 as he's been focusing on stopping people of voting, a lot of veterans vote by mail, Big C. Think about how many lives would have been saved, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, you think about people not just voting by mail, but think about people who get their medications through the mail.
Yeah.
They get their paychecks through the mail. They get their Social Security checks through the mail, Charleston. All of what the mail service does. The mail service works 300 days a year, 252 days a year.
Yeah.
And they're not just handling voting ballots, Charleston. Every day Americans rely on the post office.
Yeah.
They handle some 4 billion pieces of mail a day. And he's saying that they don't have the capacity to handle some voting ballots, Charleston.
Yeah.
But when you're taking away the lifeline of our veterans in this country, and many other senior citizens, Charleston, who get their mail, their medicines through the mail. Mine are delivered through the mail.
Yeah.
So when you're relying on your medication and you've run out of some pills because it's been left in the post office,
Yep.
because the president is cutting funding to the post office, he's directly harming Americans for his own good.
Yeah.
So you think about that when you go to the ballot box because you got late mail, your check didn't arrive on time, your medications didn't arrive on time. It was Donald Trump who mandated that.
He sure did. That's why I want to ask America. Oh, America. Please register to vote. Vote. Just text VOTE to 26797. Text the word VOTE, VOTE, 26797 and register. Text all your friends. Tell them Big C and the NFL said vote. Let's make this the biggest vote in the history of the universe. We just got to do it. And if you want to vote for someone who's grabbing your wives and children by the crotch, you know who to vote for. If you want to vote for someone who's going to bring decency to our country, you can also vote for that. I was telling you the Major League Baseball, Big C, they have the San Francisco Giants, and they're playing the Oakland A's tonight. And ironically, as people talk about how much they miss sports and how much they want to bring things back, the Giants are struggling right now, but the A's have one of the best records in baseball. But even with that said, I'm going to tell you something. As we open up talking about paying homage to our veterans and telling people about paying attention to the election, a lot of my great friends in San Francisco, they're arguing about should the A's build a new ballpark. They're not telling people to vote. Should they build a new ballpark? Is that really at the top of the mind, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, but they come off of taxpayers' money and somebody building a new ballpark, Charlton. You have to ask those people when they're debating that how much money are they willing to donate for a new ballpark to go up, and yet that money is needed for state and local governments now, Charlton, fighting this COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah,
and a lot of people out of work. Can we build $1 billion ballpark in the Bay Area as people are in food lines all over California trying to... I've seen, and I told you, God said, let there be light. And then light was created, Big C. So God must have lived in the dark. And that's when he allows you to see the moon, the stars, the universe, other galaxies, the Milky Way. You can't see the Milky Way galaxy in the daytime. God created all those good things in the dark. And we're going to have what Europeans call a dark-skinned person of color as vice president coming up here in the White House very soon. If people just follow, this is a spiritual thing going on, Big C. Tonight's baseball schedule, maybe build a ballpark when people are in food lines. Come on, guys. Baltimore at Washington, Tampa Bay at Toronto. Washington is at Baltimore. They have a delayed start because of different things going on with rain. New York Mets at Philadelphia. Boston at the New York Yankees. What a beautiful ballpark. Yankee Stadium. The Yankees win. I love seeing that. That's a big rival on the East Coast. But without the fans, Big C, are you feeling that the way a lot of media said we got to get sports back? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, I haven't really felt sports being sports. I've seen remnants of the NBA basketball. I've seen remnants of some baseball and hockey.
Yeah.
It does not feel to me like a real sporting event because sporting events, having been a former athlete, it derives from fans, Charlton. I went to more practices than I did play in games.
Yeah.
And this is what these things are reminding me of, scrimmages that they're having.
Yeah.
They don't have the familiarity of a game. I mean, if you look at NFL training camp that's going on right now, they have referees and officials out there at NFL training camps that they always have. It's always been a part of the NFL to show players and coaches what they're doing right and wrong and what they'll throw a flag on.
Yeah.
This is the same thing I see when I see these NBA games being played in the bubble, what I see with these baseball games being played without fans.
Yeah.
It's just an emptiness. I mean, I can turn it on for a few minutes, but it's almost like watching the news. You know what you're going to get. You're just getting somebody talking.
Yeah, I mean, like a good friend told me, it's kind of like love making and everybody's quiet. I mean, you kind of feel like you're not doing your job. Everybody's quiet. Doesn't make any sense. That came from a good old friend that he was telling me about that. It's all fair and love and war. Cleveland is at Detroit, Motown. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. The ATL Atlanta is at COVID-19 Miami. Really spiking down in Florida. It's amazing. Governor DeSantis says don't wear a mask even though it's spiking. Kansas City at the Minnesota Twins. Milwaukee at Chicago. Texas at Colorado. Seattle at Houston. LA Dodgers at the LA Angels of Anaheim. San Diego at Arizona. Oakland at San Francisco. St. Louis at the Chicago White Sox. In San Francisco, you know, Oakland's on the east side of the San Francisco Bay, and it's amazing how the Oakland A's are running advertisements like signs, billboards in the San Francisco area telling people to come out to the ballpark in Oakland. They already have a ballpark in San Francisco. They should put that advertisement in the East Bay, but it's all fair and love. People do what they want to do. I wish both teams the best of success, and it's nothing like the Babe Ruth series from back in the day when we had the Giants and the A's and they were competing for championships, but I still wish everybody well. Big C, I know basketball is amazing, NBA basketball. The playoffs will start, I believe, on Monday, so they have all the brackets set except for Portland and Memphis. And I don't know about you, but Damian Lillard, I'm always impressed with him. He's a kid out of Oakland and didn't go to the biggest college. He was overlooked by a lot of the schools in the Bay Area, but I think he's good. I don't know if they're going to beat Memphis. They just got to win one of two games. Memphis has to win two to be the number 8 spot. But I would love seeing this young player in the NBA, at least in the playoffs. He has so much energy, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's everybody that's in the bubble, Charlton. That's what the NBA represents. Everyone's out there competing, and that was the reason why they joined that extended bubble that the NBA was putting it out an extra 8 games.
Yeah.
Trying to get Zion and New Orleans into the playoffs more than anything else.
Not going to happen.
You know, it backfired on them, and they're most likely going to end up with Portland in there. And Portland faces a tough out for the Los Angeles Lakers when you think about the backcourt of McCollum and Lillard.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lakers really have a hard time matching up against that backcourt. They'll put a lot of pressure on the Lakers, and now that they got their big man back after the broken leg during the regular season,
yeah,
you know, it's going to be a tough match for the Lakers. The Lakers may not make it out of the second round if Portland makes it in.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's amazing. I think they'll get the officiating calls. In the East, Milwaukee Bucks number 1, Toronto Raptors number 2 seed, number 3 Boston Celtics number 4, Miami Heat number 5, Indiana Pacers number 6, Philadelphia 76ers. They have a lot of leaking in their gas tank going on, Big C. A lot of check engine lights on with Philadelphia's roster. The Brooklyn Nets are playing in the 7th spot, Orlando Magic. In the 8th, you know they had to get Orlando in, Big C. In the Western Conference, LA Lakers number 1, followed by the Clippers. Number 3 is Denver Nuggets. Number 4, OKC Thunder. Number 5 spot, Houston Rockets. Number 6, the Utah Jazz, which started all the stuff when we had everybody on the pause. Number 7, Dallas Mavericks. And again, they got to play. They just got to win one of 2 games. Portland Trailblazers, most likely looking like the team that's going to get into the Western Conference playoffs. And if they can get in against the number 1 seed Lakers, I'm sure that's going to make the Lakers play a little bit harder, and they'll get the officials on their side, Big C. We want to be sexy, Big C. We want to be the coolest sports show. We want to be thoughtful. We want to be sleek. We want to be engaging. We want to be provocative. We want to be real sports talk. If it feels good and you want some more, just Google it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, that's what life is all about, feeling good. You know, and we wish that America could feel better than what it's feeling right now in totality when we look at the number of Americans that are unemployed, as we talk about the money that they're making in sports and handing out these multi-million-dollar contracts.
Yeah.
We wish America could be healthier, Charlton, when we're looking at this COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
And we have some 5 million Americans who have been tested positive and over 168,000 lives that are lost. And yet we worry about the injury on a basketball court or a football field or a baseball diamond, Charlton.
Yeah.
America's always trying to look up and be better.
Come on, San Francisco. Should the A's build a $1 billion ballpark when a lot of people are out of work and we have a pandemic? The ballpark is empty now. It'll be empty if they build a $1 billion ballpark. It doesn't make any sense. That's just my opinion. They have 3 World Series championships down there at the Coliseum in Oakland, Big C. I want to just bring something up because a lot of sports people have been the vanguard of so many things that are good in this country. That's my opinion. Detroit Pistons, the Atlanta Hawks, and now the Los Angeles Dodgers. People think about a sports story. Would you believe they've made their arenas and stadiums available for November 3rd voting? Big C, your thoughts?
And Charlton, you would think that sports teams would have been more open to that over history, but they have not been. This is the first time that 3 professional teams have committed to having their arena and stadium used as massive polling stations, Charlton, to allow an excessive number of people to come inside and be able to vote.
Yeah.
When you think about the voting lines at these small institutions that they normally hold votes at, churches and some schools, Charlton, now you're going to have these massive arenas that holds tens of thousands of people, Charlton, allowing a copious number of people to come in and vote and get it done in an expedient fashion, Charlton. This is great that professional sports is getting behind the urge to vote now.
Yeah, and you think about it, they're using their stadiums, and I wish that more people would do it. I want to just jump to the NFL. Today's like a gumbo, Big C. I had some gumbo last night, and it feels good. I mean, it tastes good, and I still got some in my teeth. I should floss, but I like the way it tastes better the second day when it's not refrigerated, if that makes sense to you. In the NFL, the stands at FedEx Field, they're going to be a lot emptier than usual in the 2020 COVID-19 season. Out of an abundance of caution, though, Big C, due to the rapidly changing dynamics of COVID-19, the Washington football team, they announced today, or actually they announced on Wednesday, that its 2020 season at FedEx Field would be played without fans. But I would hope, in the backdrop of a man that's been so disastrous to our country, and Donald Trump, I would hope that they would do like some of the other sports arenas and open up FedEx Field so people can come in and vote, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that there's still many more stadiums in the D.C. area. When you think about that, you don't want to be outside on November 3rd in D.C. You'd much rather be at one of the basketball arenas that's enclosed. It's going to be warm. I mean, temperature in D.C. during that time is normally in the 30s and 40s, Charlton, so it's not really comfortable for people to go inside a football stadium on the Northeast and vote. So, you know, there's plenty of other places. And with fans not being allowed, you know, in the D.C. Stadium or in FedEx Field, Charlton, I think that's a good move. With the changing of the names and the uncertainty of the pandemic, Charlton, that's a positive stroke. You know, at least Dan Snyder's doing one thing right.
Yeah, he's done one thing right. I still say some people can vote in the cold, Big C. With his rain, just like the post office that Donald Trump wants to close. You know, they deliver the mail when it's rainy. They deliver the mail when it's sunshine, Big C. They deliver the mail when it's snowing. They deliver the mail even though the President of the United States of America says that they're up to shenanigans. How in the world would you come down on the post office that's helped a lot of people feed their families over the years, and now he's trying to throw the Postal Service under the bus? The Postal Service hasn't filed for bankruptcy 6 times like Donald Trump's, Big C. NCAA college football, now there's a half dozen conferences, Big C, that have canceled college football season. This season, so far, there might be some more that would do it too. I want to get your thoughts, and I guess it's just an opinion. How many players in these conferences will be able to seek a transfer, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, and that's a puzzling question, Charlton. There's going to be players with this desire to go out and play. And I know there was a linebacker from Fresno State that went into the transfer portal because the Big West canceled their conference season out there, Charlton. And so when you think about that, normally the rosters are already made. But in this pandemic time, why would players want to transfer to a school that can't keep them safe? Even though they're playing ball or think they're going to play ball, there's no guarantee that those schools that have not canceled are going to play ball. So, I mean, when we look at this thing that players are desperate to play and there's no money involved in this scenario, Charlton, you know, you need to sit down and talk to a medical expert. If you're transferring just to play sports, you're not there for an education.
You know, I've always thought if we all listen to our doctors, you can still get a second opinion, but listen to a doctor, not some booster who wants to see his team play because he wrote a check. He wrote a check to the school, so he wanted to see that check. He wanted to see those boys get out there and play so he can make good on his investment, Big C, because you know the schools are not going to get the money back when a booster gave $100,000 or $1 million, and they say, hey, we're not going to have sports this year. Is it possible that a booster can get their money back, or do they lose it in the mail, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, if you want to talk about the number one booster in the country, Charlton, and his conference, they just canceled football, you know, at the beginning of the week, the Big 12. Warren Buffett has donated $84 million to the University of Nebraska over this past decade. $84 million, Warren Buffett. He's an alumni of the University of Nebraska. He's not asking for a dime back.
And even if he did, you think they give it back? See your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, those endowments that people put forth to the universities, they're not in there just for the greed factor to say, hey, you know, they look at the entire universities when there's buildings built on campus, Charlton, when they have a building named after them or something along those lines. They're there for more than just football. I mean, you got basketball and all the other sports that they like to go and enjoy. They just have a lifetime seat to seat.
Yeah, they really do. But, when you think about it, Warren Buffett, a big booster of Nebraska football. Also, he has a real estate company called Berkshire Hathaway that I do some work with also out here in California. As college football tries to play through this pandemic, and I go guys like Warren Buffett, of course, it may not bother him. He has enough money. But there's a lot of drastic changes in the sport's future. Over here in Oakland, they're asking, will the A's build $1 billion stadium as people are out of work? I mean, come on, guys. That doesn't make any sense, Big C. But whatever you thought of college athletics as a model, it has officially and permanently been changed. And I believe since the Big C Sports podcast came onto the scene, I do believe that with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. You can Google it. The rules are being written in real time. This week is ending with the largest schools in the nation's most popular, literally in divide whether to play football, whether it's fall or spring for starters. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the divide right now in college football, Charlton, is real. And, there's always been talk in the past several years about breaking up the NCAA and that the Power Five would splinter off and become their own sovereignty, football conference.
Yeah.
But as you look at it now, there's only 3 teams left in the Power Five that are playing.
Yeah.
And, they're talking about being able to play for a championship. We don't even know where COVID-19 is going to be come December or January of 2020 and 2021, Charlton.
Yeah.
Whether that season that they're talking about starting will even continue and finish, because I know one of the conferences is talking about starting somewhere around the 9th.
Yeah.
2 other conferences are talking about starting on the 26th of September. That's a long ways away from where we are right now, Charlton. And the way that COVID-19 is spreading, it's ridiculous. We talked about the Big Ten canceling. Rutgers announced today that they've had 30 players test positive for COVID-19 since coming back to campus.
Wow.
So you think they just came back to campus here this month, and they've had 30 players test positive for COVID-19. This is the reason why the Big Ten has canceled their schedule, Charlton. And maybe, the doctors in the Big Ten, are a little more intelligent than the doctors down in the ACC,
You
the
think
Big
so?
12, and the SEC.
Yeah.
Because, in medical school, they always have somebody who graduates the head of the class. And then you got guys who 4, 5, 6, number 12 down the line, that they ranked in the class.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 got the number 1 and number 2 doctors that ranked in their class as far as graduating.
Yeah.
And when I look at the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12,
Yeah.
I'm thinking those guys in the double digits as far as where they ranked in the graduation class.
Yeah.
And they may not be as esteemed as those other doctors.
Yeah. You're talking about some of the southern Jim Crow states. They'd never put a premium on black lives. They never put a premium on the universe. In the beginning, God said, let there be light. So if he said, let there be light, doesn't that mean that God was in the darkness? If he said, let there be light, he didn't say, let there be darkness. God was in the darkness already. And just like dark-skinned people are the original people of the planet, there's less value given to their life. That's why people can say, let those boys play. They're not going to put their white grandkids out there and play.
States, Charlton, those are the states that fought in the Confederacy.
I know.
For the keeping of slavery.
Yeah.
To keep black people oppressed and working for free.
Yeah.
And you think about Texas was the last state to abolish slavery.
Juneteenth.
They're part of the Big 12. So when you think about those 3 Power 5 conferences and their, bit in history of those states that were their involvement in slavery, and you think about how they're treating black athletes today,
Yeah.
saying that these athletes are more safer with them than what they are at home with their family and parents. I mean, that's the same thing they said, that you enjoyed slavery more than you would enjoy freedom.
Yeah.
What has changed in the last 200 years?
We have an orange man with 25 sexual assault allegations and 6 bankruptcies, 5 deferments, and now he says another black woman is a foreigner. That's what hasn't changed, Big C. A lot of things are still the same. We're going to take what's called the Big C timeout. Also, the Big C pause. In the beginning, God said, let there be light. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. Let there be light. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many things we say. with Big C Sports. We would never say bonjour, bonjour. Don't say bonjour to Big C Sports. We love what we do all over the world. Really appreciate. Big C, you ever listen to when you ever have a woman sing to you or sing about you? And I've heard this song, "Stand by Your Man." Okay, she sang it a lot better than I did, Big C. But legendary country singer Dolly Parton on Black Lives Matter. Do we think our little white behinds are the only ones that matter? The answer, Dolly Parton said no, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, and when you think about how many people across this country, Charlton, understand black people in America and the plight and the struggle that they've gone through.
Yeah.
Here's Dolly Parton from Tennessee, you know, heart of the South.
Yeah.
A Jim Crow state. And when she gave that interview stating that why do white people think that their only little behinds matter in society, it's wrong.
Yeah.
And so here's somebody who's 74 years old, who has lived through that, Charlton, who
Yep.
knows what Jim Crow and segregation is. This is where she was raised in America. You know, a couple of years ago, she took the word Dixie off of her restaurant because when she understood what it stood for, that name, Charlton, and that word, you know, as a racist overture,
Yeah.
is that she took it off of her restaurant. And now for her to come out, one of the biggest names in the history of country music, especially as a female artist,
Yep.
to say that Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
That's going to turn a lot of stomachs in the South, you know, with Dolly Parton being able to make that statement. But it's true. I mean, you have to be honest. You're either racist or you're anti-racist. And I'm proud of Dolly Parton because voices like that, Charlton, resonate when it comes to empowering Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Because when you can sit there, when you're stable in life, and you have all that you want, you can't sit there with that dog whistle saying, well, they're coming to take my Dollywood world down in Tennessee. They're coming
Right.
to take my restaurant.
Right.
They're coming to take all my gold
My
albums
guns.
that I've had over the years. They're not. They're not a threat to her.
Yeah.
But she understands the struggle, especially being a woman in the South, you know, years ago. She's 74 years old. So imagine what lack of power that she had 60 years ago in the South.
Yeah.
How denigrating things were for her, where she could be forced into a marriage
Yeah.
by her family, things like that. So she understands the plight of black people in America. Because many white women, even in the South, even though they didn't want to speak up against it, dealt with the same atrocity.
Yeah, and what she means, too, by saying Black Lives Matter, it doesn't mean that white lives don't matter or all lives don't matter. We know all lives matter, but when you look at the people who've been discriminated against the most by white people, it's been black people. And I wonder how Dolly Parton, she's a wonderful person. I love her performances over the years, Big C. And as a woman, there's a sisterhood among women. It really is. Doesn't matter what color. They all can give birth. They all can bring out of the darkness into the light. Just like God said, let there be light. When the baby's in the womb, it's dark. When they come out, God lets them see the light. Think about what Dolly Parton said. Just opposed to this. An NBA says a photographer who posted an offensive Kamala Harris, as it was a sign, is no longer in the bubble. I think his name is Bill Baptist. He's a freelance photographer from Houston, of all places. We talked about Texas being, Juneteenth, where the slaves were free at the last state, Big C. And he's covered the Houston Rockets, which is full of black men, for a number of years. And he was in the bubble as an independent contractor. To get an NBA media pass, you have to go through a background check. They don't just let you walk in there and say, I want to cover the game. They're going to do a background check on you. They're going to know more about you. But this good old boy, he had a sign that says Joe and the Hoe. And for those black men that sit there and let him interview them and record their comments after a game, that's how he really feels about a woman of color, Big C. All life came from Africa, from the womb of a black woman, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that comment, that tweet that he sent out in message was made, noted by Cheryl Swopes, former WNBA star, Charlton. She retweeted it out.
Yeah.
Because of all of her followers that she has. And that's where the media backlash came from, Charlton. But this lets you know, regardless of where you are in life, you can work around black people and they could be the reason why you get a paycheck.
A job,
It
yep.
doesn't mean that you're not racist.
Right.
But to go out and make that type of statement about a black woman in America, calling her an HOE, and putting it out in national, awareness, where you put it out on social media, Charlton,
Yeah.
where millions of people have an opportunity to read this. This is what we're fighting against in society. Dolly Parton knocked it down. Said, no, white butts are not the only ones that matter. Black lives do also.
Yeah.
But here it is. You have a white reporter who wants to go out and not only just denigrate a black woman, but also tell the NBA that he's been allowed to work in this prestigious position for years down in Houston, that I don't like you black people.
Yeah.
You guys get me money, but I don't like you black
Thanks
people.
for the money.
Here laughing and grinning in your face.
Yep.
But this is what I really think about you, your wives, your mothers, your sisters, and all that.
Yeah.
This is what I think about black women.
Yeah, and as I love educating people. Your mama's black. Everybody came from Africa, from the womb of a black woman, Dr. Leakey Gregor-Mendel. See, when you know your history, all that stuff is just a teaching moment. I don't get offended. I just want to teach. I want to preach from the mountaintop, and that's what I love doing. It takes me back to a time, and I was working a game in San Francisco, and this Caucasian friend of mine, we were working the game I was doing the spotter work, and he was keeping stats. And I think it was CBS Sports because Gus Johnson was doing the game. He's now doing college football. And so as I drove over to San Francisco, they had me go pick up Gus Johnson, and I think he was working with Steve Tasker at the time. So driving back to the stadium, I had also went and picked up my Caucasian friend. And that white guy told me, we were just talking about the game, and he said, you know what, Charlton, when you see a lot of black men in a car or in a BMW, you know they're probably up to no good. And I said, wait a minute, I'm driving you in a BMW. He said, yeah, but you're different. I said, no, I'm not no different. I said, I see a lot of racist white guys that kiss the butts and suck the jock straps of black men to get a job. He said, well, I didn't mean you. I just meant, you know what I mean. I said, no, I don't know what you mean, Big C. Your thoughts. So has it happened to you?
That's what he meant. I mean, this is the overtone of white people.
Yeah.
You know, there's this mean and villainous towards black people who have a bit of success in society. And here's a guy that was working in the NBA bubble and worked around the NBA for years.
Yeah.
And he put out these venomous statements about black people. So just think about the comments that he's had in away from work situations about the black athletes that he's been around, allowing him to afford this comfortable lifestyle that he's been living in that he'll no longer have anymore because he'll be ostracized in the sports world. But just think about that. For a black man to achieve in America is that there has to be some criminality involved in it.
You got to put him in a place, Big C. There's a reason God let him learn from you, Big C. And he was working with the L.A. Lakers last I saw him on television. NCAA, we cannot at this point have NCAA championships. Mark Ermich of the NCAA said, because there's not enough schools participating. And the Board of Governors also said, look, if you don't have half of the schools playing a sport, you cannot have a legitimate championship. So we can't play in any Division I NCAA championship sport, which is everything other than the FBS football. But never did he talk about the health. They kept saying we don't have enough guys that are dumb enough to keep playing. These guys are starting to read. Now that they're starting to read, we can't make the money off of them anymore without considering their health and finances. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's been the talk since March, Charlton. What is the NCAA doing to protect the health of the athletes? And they've had this plan in place that they've never implemented since March because they don't know what the hell they're doing.
No.
All they can look at is the bottom line dollar. How much money are we going to make? How much money are we going to lose?
Yeah.
They have not put any health and safety protocols since March when they canceled college basketball. So you think about how important the student athlete is to these people. It's not. You know, they're talking about creating bubbles. How do you create a bubble for student athletes, Charlton, where they can't go to class and they can only play football? That lets you know that you only want them for their bodies. You can care less about the development of their mind.
Yeah, I think Jim Harbaugh said it best. Who's got it better than us? Nobody. When he was getting all that free money from black players and a couple of white guys too, and they were getting nothing but a pat on the back, a hat, and some tennis shoes. Harbaugh's getting that $7.5 million. Of course, he wants those God old boys to play, but he won't bring his family out there and have them trade, swap and sweat. Big C. Think about this, college football, former LSU and current Oregon State president, his name is F. King Alexander. The SEC plans to play football. He said it's not based on reality. And I'm telling you, there's something about that Southern mentality. God said, let there be light. And these good old boys, they're not putting their families out there. Most of the kids they recruit are black. They're thinking money first, health last. It was the same way in the days of Jim Crow. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the COVID-19 positive rate in those states in the SEC, Charlton, it's off the charts. Right now, Mississippi is in the top 5 in the country. Alabama's in the top 10. I know that Texas is number 2, I believe it is, as far as positive COVID-19 testing. Florida, we know, is number 1.
Yeah.
So as we look at the death rate and the positive rate in those states, which they're trying not to report as many, how can these guys sit there and confidently say that we can guarantee the health and safety of these athletes? Here's a former president of a university that's in a conference now that canceled football.
They read.
They looked at the science, knowing that they cannot keep the players healthy or safe from COVID-19. They cannot keep them from the exposure. But these conferences saying that they still are going to play, that they don't trust the science. They believe that if they don't report it, then you don't have positive cases.
Wow.
That's what's going on in those 3 Power 5 conferences, Charlton, that have not canceled college football.
Yeah.
If they don't report the cases, then you don't have positive cases. Just like Rutgers came out today and said they've had 30 positive cases since the athletes returned back to campus.
Wow.
They haven't been there a month. You're talking about 2 weeks, and they got 30 positive cases.
Yeah. I think it's Syracuse University also. I think they said they will not practice while having answers to COVID-19 because they also read Big C. Everybody has. We all know the answer. Some people say don't get a pregnancy test because if you don't get a pregnancy test, then you won't be pregnant, even though you're 8 months and your belly's sticking out like a basketball, Big C. But some people, they think if they just put their head in the sand, that it'll all just go away. It'll wash away. There's a football player down in Alabama, and I noticed him. I studied him in California. He went to Antioch High School over in the East Bay, out by Oakland, and his name is Najee Harris. He was a high school All-American. He was up for Mr. California. He's about a 6'2", 220-pound running back, and he went down to Alabama for some reason as opposed to staying on the West Coast, Big C, and now he's being exploited. And he said, this is a good, and I hope he's listening, because he's a good kid. And he says, I'm considering how much money that he'll make in Alabama versus in the NFL. He's considering just opting out of the season. And I'm telling him, ask Nick Saban if he's going to give you the millions of dollars that you can make as an NFL running back, because he's going to be a first-round draft pick. But they've tucked that young black boy into thinking that he can play for Alabama where it's spiking, and he's going to be okay because he wants to win a championship. You become a multi-millionaire in the NFL, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is the state of the Power 5 conferences, Charlton, that have not canceled. Not just Alabama, the entire SEC, the Big 12, as well as the ACC. When they say players that we want to play, yes, you do want to play. This is the journey of every young man who has gotten a college scholarship and an opportunity to play on television. You want to play.
Yeah.
But you think about yourself. You're being selfish. We're talking about the 22 starters. Think about those 50 guys that are on the sideline that never get into the game, Charlton.
Yeah.
And that's every game for every team in a Power 5 conference.
Yeah.
They have 50 players on the sideline every game that never get into the game. The only sweat they break is during warm-up, running in and out of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So you're thinking about players being selfish in making those statements. Because your money is already there if you're going to be a draft pick in the NFL. Your draft stock is not going to hurt if you're not going to play this season. So think about how selfish you are as a college teammate when you're looking at those 50 players on the sideline that never get into the game, and you're talking about, we want to play, and they're just standing there for a photo op.
Yeah, and if you go out there and get your lung capacity messed up, you're going to say bye to those millions of dollars. That's okay. I'm sure Nick Saban will give you his paycheck. Even down south where it's spiking, University of Miami, their football coach, Manny Diaz, he says he wants football to be played in a bubble. These guys are so dumb, they won't even listen to science that's saying, you guys, in the smart conferences, let's just put these things on pause. They paused college football back in 1918 season with the Spanish flu. Do you know they were playing again in 1919 when they got on top of it, Big C, with the vaccine? And it's the same thing now. But you have a lot of dumb guys, and I'm telling you, it's a fact. When God said, let there be light, he didn't just mean light as far as sunlight, but let there be an intellectual awakening for a lot of these young kids. Every single one of you, I would say at least 95% 5% of you, and I'm talking to black and white kids, the men telling you to go out there and risk your health and pretend that this is not real, they're white. They're not black men. And for you black players, you go out there and get involved in this garbage, and you take that stuff home to your parents for Thanksgiving. You think those white men are going to come there and let you live on their medical plan? They're going to say, hey, I'm sorry about what happened to you. Our thoughts and prayers are with you, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, as you look at these universities, Charlton, and them doing this to these athletes, you have to wonder what type of person they are. Just like I said yesterday, why don't you bring in your family and have them work as water boys and towel boys and towel girls?
Let them play football.
Bring in your wife, your children, your brother and your sister and your parents. Bring them all there and let them stand out on the field with all these players since you feel that it's safe.
Yeah.
And when you're sitting there with Manny Diaz talking about playing in a bubble, there are two bubbles in football. One is called a helmet. The other one's called the dome stadium.
Yeah.
But if you're a student athlete in college, how do you separate the athletes from the student body? How do you take them away from the campus and say they cannot be affiliated with the campus? Now you've gone into a whole new territory. You're saying that these athletes are not there to be students. This is what you're saying. But, I would love for all these coaches, and they all have families, to bring all their families that they know to practice every day.
Yeah.
That's what I'd love for them to do.
Yeah.
It's so damn safe to put somebody else's kid out there, and you said that those kids are safer with you than what they would be back at their home with their parents. Bring your own family into that practice facility every day.
Yep.
Let's see how safe everybody is.
Yeah, they won't do it. Either lead, fall, or get out of the way. If you think about it, Big C, 5 on-field NFL officials and 2 replay officials, they read. These guys read a lot. They did not need to challenge this play, Big C. They've opted out of the NFL season. There's a lot of dumb guys that'll let white men talk them into something over money. I believe that's why a lot of guys are getting their contracts are extended, because money would make people think about money more than their health. That's one of the reasons I believe. But 5 game officials, they've opted out of the 2020 season for NFL because of the pandemic. They're not calling it fake news. They want to keep their health as well as possible in tune with what scientists are saying, not with some boosters saying, not with some Yahoo reporter saying that's in his own house, instead of going into his studio saying, please, we need sports back. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you talk about those NFL officials that have opted out. Think about the NBA had officials that opted out. Major League Baseball had officials that opted out. College football will have officials that opt out.
Yeah.
People understand that this thing about the COVID-19 is real. The games are only a temporary pause in the game.
Yeah.
Life, if you have a pause in life, then you don't get to restart it all over again if your life is lost due to COVID-19. So I respect all these individuals. And you think about a lot of officials and referees in various sports, they're older. They're not all young. A lot of them are older. So they're looking at the health and the science and pre-existing conditions in their life and with their family.
Yeah, and they read. Even in New Zealand, just say Big C Sports Process. You can Google it. In New Zealand, rugby's even put on pause because of a COVID-19 outbreak. And that's the thing that bugs me. It doesn't bug me too much because I can read and I'm responsible for what happens in my own life. But all around the world, they're having people that will say, you know what, there's an outbreak. Let's just put things on pause and wait until this clears up, and then they can come back and play. In Wellington, New Zealand, an outbreak of COVID-19 in New Zealand, its largest city, has affected the last round of the matches in its Super Rugby contest. And so they're even allowed a crowd of up to 43,000 in Auckland Eden Park, Big C, but they're stepping aside because they're doing what scientists are saying. I just want to be an advocate for science. I know some people don't believe in science. Some say it's just junk science, but I'm proud of those men for stepping aside for the pause. Major League Baseball, the St. Louis Cardinals, they face a daunting challenge when you think about it. In Major League Baseball return, St. Louis, which has only played 5 games, 5, like $5 foot long. I might get one of those after the show, Big C. 5 games, and will return from the COVID-19 outbreak and play 53 times over 45 days. Big C, that make any sense to you? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's an astonishing number of games that you're going to be playing over 45 days. And during that 45 days, Charlton, they've put in 11 double hitters in that 45 days.
Yeah.
So when you talk about a team playing on fumes and you really have to question what are you playing for, you're basically already out of the race,
Yeah.
if you're St. Louis. And so what's going to happen if they get another bout of COVID-19 on the team, Charlton, and they have to cancel another week's worth of games?
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, and I appreciate Rob Manfred for trying as hard as he could, and even the Players Union is trying to keep baseball going.
Yeah.
So that players get that extra year of, where free agency kicks in earlier for them in their career. They should have just gave it to the players because look at the health risk that they're putting on players, and you're going to be tired.
Yep.
You're playing that many games in that short amount of days, Charlton. The body's going to break down.
Yeah.
So that's going to make you even more vulnerable to catching COVID-19.
I saw a sad thing just the other day, Big C. I was at a gas station, and I saw this older white gentleman. His color doesn't matter, but I guess he meets the profile of a Donald Trump. If I'm judging people, and I don't want to judge anybody, but he was an old guy, probably in his late 70s, and he got out of his car. He could barely walk. He had a cane, and he had one of those oxygen masks hooked up to his body. He had a mask on his face because of COVID-19. And so as this man walked out of the gas station, he had 3 cartons of cigarettes in his hand. And I said, that's pretty odd. Here's a guy with a breathing apparatus. He's walking with a cane. And he has a mask, I guess because he wants to avoid COVID-19. But he still had 3 packages of cigarettes in his hand. And while I felt bad for the man, I said maybe he's just trying to ease his pain. But it seems like that's no different than these college coaches that are saying the CDC is saying wear a mask and do social distancing, and they're willing to put a carton of cigarettes in their hand. It's just the cartons they're using. You can't see it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he was worried about COVID-19, not emphysema that's going to kill him.
Yeah, and it's a shame. But he had the warnings. It says on the label, these products may be known to cause cancer. And I don't know what he had. I'm not a doctor, but it didn't look too good. I just, I wish him well, but it's, no one's making him smoke, Big C. Major League Baseball, the LA Dodgers, Mookie Betts. He hit 3, and I was stuttering on purpose, Big C. Mookie Betts, I did it. Did I stutter 3 times? Because he hit 3 home runs in one game versus the Padres, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's a nominal feat, Charlton, but it doesn't compare with what's going on across town with the Angels and Mike Trout. Mike Trout is coming back from the birth of his first child, Charlton.
Yeah.
He's hit 7 home runs. He's hit a home run in every game that he's played since having a baby.
Yeah, but Mike Trout's trying to get out of the house so he don't have to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's why he's motivated to keep hitting home runs. But it's all fair and love and war. They really are in the battle for LA, Big C. I love the fact that these guys are having a lot of success, and they're going to do what they can. But I want to touch on a couple more things before we close out on this beautiful, I want to say it's a happy Friday, because I want to say every day is happy, and I'm thankful to God for so many wonderful things. But I'd be remiss if I didn't thank again Dolly Parton for telling everybody, she's a white woman, that black lives matter too. It doesn't mean all lives matter, humanity matters. But she's trying to, just like God said, let there be light. God said, let there be light, to shine a light on what has been happening to black people in this country and around the world. And for the most part, just like the Native Americans, people with white skin did it. Not everyone, but people understand that. So when Dolly Parton, is she a terrorist, Big C? When Donald Trump said Black Lives Matter is a terrorist, is he calling Dolly Parton a terrorist, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I'm waiting on the text that he sends out about Dolly Parton asking how could she turn on her race. But, when we look at these dog whistles in this country, you have to be the intelligent person in the room. I always talk about who's in the room where it happens.
Yeah.
And to have a white woman of prominence, more salient than the First Lady. The First Lady won't come out and make a statement like that. I remember she came out with some little tidbit talking about be best.
Yeah, she's a scared, Big
and yet
C.
she still does not strike down racism. This is the First Lady of the United States. And you would think that she would have compassion for people, but she doesn't. She has been quiet as a church mouse pissing on cotton on Sunday.
Yep.
You don't hear it. And that's the First Lady. And she will not stand up for Black Lives Matter. She will not stand up against this bullying. She will not stand up against this police brutality. The First Lady of the United States saying that all of what her husband is doing and all what the villainous white people in America are doing is acceptable and okay.
Yeah.
She is a foreigner in our country.
Yeah.
She should be the one standing up and saying, I don't appreciate the way that these people are being treated.
Yeah.
Period. Regardless of the nationality. But we got a First Lady who's walking around with her jaws zipped tight, not representing this country, not protecting the people of this country.
Yeah, you got to understand when a woman is going through abuse, mental and physical, Big C. You can understand that. I do want to praise President Obama, because President Obama, it's good when you see class, Big C, and that's why in the beginning God said, let there be light. So he allowed President Obama to shine some light on the world, and he did it again. President Obama showed praise. I'm talking to women, all women, whether it's a grandparent, a mother, a wife, a daughter, a sister, an aunt, whatever it is. Friends, President Obama, he showed praise on Kamala Harris. He says she's smart. He says she's honest. She's fair. And when men say that about women, I respect that man. Juxtapose that. You have a bigot in the White House, Donald Trump. His father was arrested at a Ku Klux Klan rally, 1927, New York City. People can Google that. This big head man is talking about racism, calling her a birther, making those racist attacks again. He's appealing to the worst of American people, especially white American people, since Governor Wallace. That's a tired old playbook, Big C. And I'm hoping that decent people, especially women, when he's attacking another woman who's accomplished a lot, and he's a senator, she's been a California attorney general, the largest state in the union, and when you attack her, and he also was talking about lock her up with Hillary Clinton, every powerful woman has been attacked by this white man. Even those 25 women that had the sexual assault allegations, and that's just the women who were bold enough to come forward, not the ones who are still afraid. Big C, your thoughts on seeing class in President Obama? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, it's not even about President Obama, and it's not even about Kamala Harris. It's about the people who think like Donald Trump. I mean, to have to be in 2020 and still try to explain and talk down what they're doing and what they're saying, those people still exist. I mean, it's not a minimal part of society in America. It's a vampant part of American society that believes in that and want what he says to be true, and they follow him wholeheartedly. That's their thought process. I mean, it's easy to focus on the one individual. Donald Trump did not elect Donald Trump. That's the thing that everybody needs to understand. Donald Trump did not put Donald Trump in the White House. He didn't go to the ballot enough times to put his butt in there. It was the people who have the same mindset that he does. And when you focus just on Donald Trump, then you miss the whole prize, Charlton, because those people out there that's working in the backdrop, that are making the momentum flow towards him, those are the ones that you have to be concerned about. You can always see the figurehead. It's just like an iceberg. You see the iceberg. You see the racism up on top. But you don't see all that racism that lies below the waterline. When you look at gerrymandering, racial bias, everything that has occurred in this country to oppress people of color, that's the part of the iceberg that's under the water. We see Donald Trump because he's above the water. Everybody else, think about those United States senators, Charlton, who don't say a word to oppose what Donald Trump says. Then they agree and they push his agenda. They went home this week, Charlton, 2 weeks after unemployment ran out for Americans.
Yeah.
They're going to be on recess until after Labor Day.
Yeah.
So it's going to be at least 5 days before Americans get an unemployment check again. These are the people. You talk about Donald Trump. Talk about those senators. All the people that support him. All the people that got him in office and kept him in office. They had an opportunity, Charlton, when he was impeached by Congress, Charlton, that the Senate sit there on their hands and said, no, we like what Donald Trump does. So it's not Donald Trump. It's all those people that allow him to do what he does.
Yeah, it's all of there's good and bad in the world, Big C, so you're never going to get all good people. That's just part of life. I want to close out with two more stories. The Sacramento Kings The GM, Vlade Divac, decided to step down. He said he was going to step down a year ago if they didn't make the playoffs, but he's going to step down. And the Joe Dumars is going to be named the vice president of operations for the Sacramento Kings. They're owned by Amanda Culler and Vivek Ranadive, Big C. So there's more things happening in the world of NBA. I hope that Dumars can at least get a good opportunity to do a good job. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at basketball is one of those things that's long. It's about the players being able to play, being healthy and not being distracted, and developing their game to get better.
Yeah.
All NBA players don't do that and not willing to do that. They're happy with a paycheck.
Yeah, happy with a paycheck. As we always tell you, you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. It's all over the place. I really appreciate it, and I love saying bonjour, but don't say bonjour to Big C Sports. I really love what we're doing with the show, and I hope that everybody can go out and enjoy a great weekend. And no matter what you do, let there be light, Big C. Back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, Charlton, all those athletes out there that have someone in their family who is on Social Security, disability, former military, and they rely on the post office to receive their support, whether it's their check or whether it's their medication.
Yep.
Remember who you vote for on November the 3rd and keep them safe also. And I want to thank those frontline healthcare workers, the nurses, doctors, first responders. I know a lot of you people rely on the mail service also. So stay away from voting for that Republican in the White House and vote to keep your mail coming and keep our country safe.
And keep our country safe. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, there is no excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to deal with that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.